The Curse in the Colophon, Chapter 6. The moments that ensued I shall never forget. They were to prove so portentous, so momentous for both of us. The setting was commonplace enough, the stuffy little workroom, badly lighted at best, and then, after I had found the place and set the manuscript open at the grim colophon upon the reading desk, dark with weird discriminating darkness of the ultraviolet light, which conceals all ordinary objects but erased writing and natural teeth. Over the page bent the eager face of Tish, breathless, to see what change the magic lamp would make on the aspects of its lines. Over her shoulder, I bent my head by hers to listen for a voice over which the centuries had seemed to close forever, to read the lines over which so strange a curse had been pronounced, a curse we were both of us now to incur, by reading the forbidden message. And yet we went blithely forward, careless of old monkish hates and warnings, all eagerness to see what they had seemed so determined we should not read. And there it stood, the forbidden underwriting, well enough concealed, one would think, by being so thoroughly rubbed out, but doubly protected by the imprecation written over it, a sort of "Cursed be he that moves my bones," 100 years older than Shakespeare. The lines were few, not over a dozen in all, and my first impression was that they were somehow strangely familiar. I had seen that hand before. But where? My memory groped. Recently, certainly, since I'd come abroad. St. Gall's, wasn't it? Why, of course, in this very manuscript, on this very page, the upper writing. The same scribe had written both the erased colophon and the curse that later covered it. If anything could have deepened the mystery of the thing, this did it. Why on earth did the old fellow so strongly object to something he himself had written? To curse your own readers was going a little too far. But it was no time for reverie or reflection. "Tish," I cried, "this is the same hand, don't you see? The underwriting and the upper are both by the same scribe. He was cursing his own readers. What do you make of that?" "I don't know yet," whispered Tish, for the thing's air of secrecy was strong upon her. "But help me out with the sense, and let's see what it's all about. You know I don't read these things very fast yet." Thus admonished, I set myself up to the decipherment of the colophon. It was not very difficult, and some blundering with its worst scrawls. This is what I read to my excited partner. "I, Parthenius the Studite, under-librarian of Blackernay, have saved from the hand of the Turks the chief treasures of the emperor's library, together with the sacred picture and the regalia, crown, orb, and scepter, and have brought them to safety in the grotto of our omnipotent Savior, in Zaltir, that is, by the great lake, and in the land of the Iberians, until the times of the heathen are fulfilled." I did not at once achieve the fair copy presented here, but this is what we worked out of it then and there, or afterward as we pondered over it in the tea room of the Grand Hotel, whither we repaired as soon as the library closed. Until then we had no thought of food, nor of the possible meaning of our colophon, being too much absorbed by the immediate problem of its decipherment and translation. But now we were faced by a new riddle, its interpretation. "Well," I feebly observed after the edge was taken off our hunger, "I've told you the dream. Now tell me the interpretation thereof." "I thought the same man did both in the Bible," Tish rejoined. "Who was Parthenius? And where is Blackernay? Where did he take the treasures? What were they anyway? And where in the world is Salteri, and the great lake, and the land of the Iberians? What does he mean by the sacred picture and the regalia? Did they have crown, orb, and scepter, all three in Constantinople?" "Well, it's not all hopeless," said I gropingly. "This Parthenius was doubtless, as he says, the under-librarian at Blackernay, which was the palace of the Paleologi emperors and housed the imperial library. The land of the Iberians is what we call Georgia, east of the Black Sea, but where Salteri and the Great Lake are, I don't know." "I suppose there might be ways of finding out," said Tish hopefully. "That is, if we think the thing really means what it seems to say." "That this library fellow spirited the books off to his remote spot to save them?" I queried. "Well, that's what it sounds like," she answered soberly. "Then it looks as if he meant that he rescued them at the fall of Constantinople," I thought aloud. "And in that case, Well, in that case, this is the answer to your old question of what came of the books, Tish hurried on. Great heavens, my dear, I blurted out. If that is so, we may have hold of something rather tremendous. It certainly looks like it. If we can find out where it is, and if somebody hasn't been there for very long before us, she answered. We were both pretty solemn by this point. This is going to take some careful handling, but it may turn out to be a very big thing, as you say. First, we've got to find out where this place is, and then what to do about it. The Siberia now, Tish began. Haven't I heard you talk about it? It can't be a very big country, can it? I mean, it's not like Texas or Africa, is it? Hardly that, I replied. It can't have been a very big place at any time. But what we want is a map of it from about 1500. That is the period when this chap knew it. Then we can hunt for its altaria in the Great Lake and locate them. The grotto of the omnipotent Savior must have been some sort of chapel there, where he thought they might not be disturbed. Well, then that's the first step, said Tish energetically. You'll see to that. I suppose you can find some old atlases here in the Ambrosian, can't you? But what worries me is why this old fellow should have rubbed out his clue to the whereabouts of this treasure, and then with his own hand written his curse over it. It sounds as if he did not want it found out. That's what I puzzled over for so long at St. Gall's, I rejoined. I know it's guesswork, but isn't it possible that this old fellow did it with a double purpose? He wanted to scare the wrong people away from his secret, and to reserve it for the critical and inquiring mind that would see beneath the surface and be positively attracted by this curse, not frightened off by it. Remember the great age he lived in, and the place he lived in, the one great historic seat of civilization and intelligence in the world, a city with a great tradition of 1,100 years behind it. I don't suppose any modern city has such a commanding prestige as Constantinople had in the 15th century. Its great church of Santa Sophia is still unsurpassed, and its treasures of manuscript art must have beggared all description. Some of the leading men there must have felt the currents of the Renaissance and hoped that the tide of Turks would someday ebb and let the old Greek civilization return. That might account for it, said Tish dubiously. But how on earth could he think anyone could read it after he had erased it so completely? They didn't have ultraviolet lamps in those days, surely. I know, I hasten to agree. But some of their curious arts are lost now, and this may have been one of them. And anyway, until very lately, the only way to read a palimpsest was to apply some chemical to it. Gioberti's tincture was one, wasn't it? The great drawback being, of course, that while they might bring the writing back for a time, it soon disappeared again, and the parchment turned black and remained so. Of course, he didn't know about Gioberti's tincture either, but he might have known something else that he knew would either bring the writing back out for a while, long enough for someone to understand it, and then get the directions contained, as we've done. We don't care now what becomes of the Colophon. We didn't bother to have it photographed, for we don't particularly want anybody else to know its secret, at least for the present. So you think he was relying on one of the lost arts, Tish mused? Well, if anybody knew them, I suppose those men on the inside at Constantinople must have done so. That would make sense of his two Colophons anyway, but it left posterity a very small chance to find his treasure, whatever it was. Well, he must have been at his wit's end, mustn't he? The stuff mustn't perish, and he must have risked his life to get it away at all. Here was a faint hope, a slim chance, that someone of the right sort might sometime get a hold of it again, when the tide had turned and the Turks did not control everything. Of course, he may have written these Colophons and other manuscripts too, said Tish. This may not be the only one that has the curse written over the secret. Possibly so, I went on, and this may be the only one to work, unless, I added, struck by a sudden thought, some of his other clues may have been picked up by somebody else before now. Perhaps the thing has been worked out long ago and the place found and looted. It's possible, of course, said Tish, but they can hardly have had this ultraviolet gadget to help them. That's almost brand new. Still, there have been other ways of bringing up lost writing, though not so good. This Gioberti tincture, for instance. Somebody might have seen through this thing and tried that on one of Parthenius's clues, supposing, that is, that he tried the same thing more than once. Perhaps other clues were different. This seems about the most desperate kind he could have tried. A fascinating idea, cried Tish romantically. Think of the poor fellow off in that out-of-the-world place, racking his brains to think of a way to perpetuate his secret without giving it away. He might have spent the rest of his life plotting and planning such things. And it would have been well spent at that, said I, if it resulted in preserving to the world the contents of that library. Think of it, the cream of medieval art, the masterpieces of 100 lifetimes. Well, if you put it over, the old chap deserves a monument, said Tish recklessly. But suppose he did try other tricks, and this is not the only one. Someone may have got on to one of the others. Perhaps we're too late with the ultraviolet and all your cleverness. More yours than mine, I guess, said I. But maybe they have, and the thing has been solved long ago. Still, in that case, wouldn't we have heard of it? These things would have made quite a splash, you know, even 1/10 of them if they turned up with dealers or in our libraries. Tish gave a sudden gasp of surprise. But they have been turning up, she cried. Didn't I tell you? What I found in London about the way the finest things have been coming to light of late years, and all of them from one small area on the shores of the Black Sea. Armenia, wasn't it? Isn't that just about that region that Colophon describes as this old fellow's hiding place? Suppose somebody got a hold of one of his other clues and traced them down years ago and has cleaned them out. You know how these natives handle a find. They split the stuff among the members of the family. The eldest son gets some, the next son some, and so on down to the youngest. Each one keeps his as long as he likes. When he needs the money, he sells it. Think how hard it was to reassemble the Hammuli library of some 60 volumes that turned up in Egypt some years ago. The finders had scattered the find among all their sons and brothers. They treat them just as we treat securities, stocks or bonds, put them by for a rainy day. The Syrians are just the same. If somebody found these things, they would not plump them on the market just as a collection. No, just the opposite. They would have let them out slowly, one at a time, as this one or that one needed the money. Good heavens, I exclaimed. Do you really think that we're sunk then? How many of these things you describe were there, all told, from this place you speak of? Oh, 12 or 15 that we know of, said Tish. But all of them star pieces, you understand. Just the kind of things the Imperial Library would be likely to contain. Purple-stained vellum, gold and silver letters, loads of miniatures, beautifully painted, psalters, gospels, octutes, New Testaments. Well, Parthenius must have got away with more than that by the way he speaks, I countered. The chief treasurer sounds like quite a lot to me. How do you visualize the thing anyway? Asked Tish. I wish I could remember how Constantinople lies and where this Blackernay was. Wait a minute, said I. This hotel must have some guidebooks. I'll try the office. It was stiff work, but in a few minutes I managed to raise a Constantinople Murray from the clerk, and we were bending eagerly over the map of the city. There's Blackernay right there, Tish exclaimed, putting her finger on the spot. There it was, plain enough, in the northern corner of the great, almost triangular city. And see, it's right by that inlet, the Golden Horn. Where does it lead to? It doesn't lead to anything that way, I reflected. But this way, he could get right into the Hellespont and on into the Black Sea, which was just where he wanted to go. Then that all fits perfectly with the Colophon, don't you think? Can't you just see how it must have happened? The sub-librarian, probably a monk, slipping down some back stairs and out some postern right down to the waterside with a sack on his back into which he had tumbled the best things he could reach in his hurry. When you come to think of it, the choice things I've described as turning up of late years, one man could carry on his back if he had to. Well, even if we're beaten, I reflected aloud, and some beggar has got off there before us, at least we can say where this stuff came from and tie it up with the lost Imperial Library. That's something from a scholar's point of view, I suppose. I suppose so, said Tish without enthusiasm. But what I want is not consolation, but manuscripts. But you go too fast. In the first place, the Colophon sounds like a bigger cache than what's come to light yet, as far as we know. In the second, if these natives have stumbled on it and split it up, there may be as much left in their hands as they've let go. And it's always possible the whole thing wasn't in just one place. If natives found it, it must have been chance. They can't read colophons, I suppose. You're right, they can't, said I coarsely. I think we have enough to go ahead on, as you say. Nobody from the West, no Frank, as they call us, has got onto the thing so far. And as for the natives, we'll talk to them when we see them. You don't happen to know Georgian, I suppose? No, said Tish reluctantly. I'm afraid I don't. Nor Armenian? No, nor Armenian to speak of. Oh, I believe I can say the Lord's Prayer in Armenian. Classical Armenian, of course. The man who was mending our rugs once taught it to me, but that wouldn't help much. Probably not, I admitted. Still, you can't tell. A little sometimes goes a great way with these people. It might satisfy them if we weren't Turks at any rate. We might work up a little conversational Georgian or Armenian, Tish suggested hopefully. I don't believe they're so awfully difficult, are they? Do you mean we're going there? I almost blurted out, but hastily switched to, do you really mean we could get on without an interpreter? I know a little Turkish, I added modestly. Just seemed to realize how far our imaginations had led us. Well, she said practically, the first thing is to locate this place, Salteri in the Great Lake. I suppose that couldn't be the Black Sea, could it? They had various names for it in old times, didn't they? Oh, yes, said I. And in that case, Salteri must be on the coast, which would help. Yes, it would help us, and it would have helped them. It would also help anybody who may have got a hold of this business before, said Tish regretfully. But how soon can you get a hold of these old atlases and find out the geography? That's the first step, I suppose. I agreed that it was and promised to make it the order of the day as soon as the library opened the next morning. At the door of her hotel, we parted with a queer new sense of acquaintance and partnership. We had gone through strange experiences that morning, and were now grappling with strange problems together, trying to fit our minds into each other's to find their solution. It was all very stimulating and delightful, I thought.